Thank you very much. I appreciate it so much. And, good afternoon, and thank you for providing me the opportunity to join you here today for the Policy Day at your 8th Annual Coptic Solidarity Conference. And, I want you to know, I did have a prepared speech, but I want you to know how important you are to us. We're very busy up on the Hill. Today, not as much, but usually we have 3 or 4 meetings scheduled at the same time. But this is so very important to me and some other members of Congress, Representative Smith, and I'm glad this Avio Sirius as well. He has his own story to tell you today. I have a duty and obligation, I feel, to protect Christians around the world, particularly in that region, the Middle East, and of course, we have issues with, I'm a Greek Orthodox Christian, pretty close to Coptic Christian, I think probably the closest, I want to be in Egypt as soon as possible as well. I haven't had the opportunity yet, but I will. And I'm very close to the community in the Pinellas County, but also Hillsborough County in the Tampa Bay area. Wonderful, wonderful people. But I have a duty and an obligation to protect Christians in the Middle East, but also throughout the region. And I will do that as long as I'm in Congress. Again, I'm blessed to have a wonderful Coptic community in the Tampa Bay area. I've attended many services at St. George in Tampa and St. Mary and St. Mina in Clearwater, gorgeous Coptic churches with thriving congregations. As a member of the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission and now as a co-vice chair of the International Religious Freedom Caucus, I have worked to protect religious minorities throughout the world, from the Falun Gong in China to the Ahmadi in Pakistan to the Baha'is in Iran. However, the suffering and persecution of Christians in the Middle East, specifically Egypt, is particularly alarming because of the staggering growth in the number of attacks, particularly in the past 2 years. I'm troubled that we continue to see regular instances of violence against Coptic homes, businesses, and places of worship. Vigilante violence has taken the lives and livelihoods of innocent men and women and children throughout Egypt, and for far too often with impunity. That is why this conference and organizations like the Coptic Solidarity are vital to our efforts to raise awareness and shine a light on the plight of the suffering. The right to worship must be protected in the Middle East and North Africa, starting with Egypt. Coptic Christians are Egyptians and should not be pushed from their ancestral homeland just because of their religion. Egypt's Christian community, an estimated 10% of the population, can trace its roots back to Egypt for over 2,000 years. Again, St. Mark. Again, the Christians were there. They're the true Egyptians. In some Egyptian communities, Christians still make up at least 40% of the population. However, many Coptic Christians are under constant threat and live in fear of being attacked, like during the devastating church bombing at the end of 2016 or the recent gunpoint massacre of Christians heading to worship. Can you imagine just worshiping? But I don't want to, we can't stop just because the government says, well, we're going to protect you, what have you. These are wonderful, wonderful people. I can see it because a lot of them have immigrated to the United States. They contribute so very much. I'm preaching to the choir here, I know that. But I just want you to know how much I respect you. You're educated, you create jobs, you're wonderful people, you put your religion first, and I'm very proud to be associated with you. I really am. Egypt needs to fully recognize and embrace the modern secular system of government and eradicate the institutionalized discrimination against Coptic Christians. Okay, and you should again, educated people contribute to society, contribute to the great country of Egypt, and we're not going to rest. We're not going to rest until you're treated like first-class citizens, as far as I'm concerned, and your relatives. And I appreciate the fact that you are here in the United States. You're very successful, but you haven't forgotten the people, the family back home, and that means the world to me. I'm second-generation Greek American, and I haven't forgotten where my grandparents were from. And again, I have a duty and obligation to protect, first of all, the Mother Church in Constantinople. You know what's happening in Hagia Sophia right now. They're threatening to turn it into a mosque. We don't have a seminary, and the seminary in Halki has been closed since 1971. That's unacceptable, folks. We must speak out. And I will also tell you, my suggestion is, yeah, the folks here gave some good recommendations, and I'm sorry that I missed part of the presentation and the roundtable, but reach out to not only Orthodox Christian communities, it's so very important that we're united, but also Christian communities in general, because if they know your story, if they know our story, now I'm a couple generations removed, but it's still my story. I know I've heard stories about my family members being ejected from Smyrna, which is now Izmir. I still call it Smyrna, in Turkey. They were threatened they were going to kill them, or they had to leave, or they did kill them. Over 1 million Greeks, and what happened with the Armenians. So I know the story. It's basically the same story: discrimination against religious minorities, and we're not going to put up with it. We can't put up with it. So again, talk to the Christian communities around the country and let them know what the story is, because I tell you, they'll advocate on your behalf. I know they will. So likewise, again, we must not let Syrian Christians, again, and others across the Middle East, Africa, and Eurasia be pushed from or intimidated in their homelands. We must not let Christians face execution for their beliefs. That's why it's critical that the administration appoint an ambassador at large for international religious freedom to not only send a strong signal to the world regarding our priorities, but more importantly, to work with relevant stakeholders to draft a strategy to address this violence. HRES 319, a bill I've co-sponsored, expresses a sense to the administration. Let's stand up even to our so-called allies, and you know who they are, our so-called allies, and let them know that the United States will not ignore their crimes against humanity. I promise you that I will never back off and I will never back down. And I ask you to do the same. And thank you for being here today. It makes all the difference in the world when you're storming Talk to your neighbors, okay? Make sure they know how important these issues are to you. Write letters to the editor of your local papers. Hold prayer vigils in your communities and invite local officials and friends and co-workers who may not know. While we may not be able to snuff out all of the local violence all the time, we can surely work to extinguish international indifference. Be a voice for the voiceless. If we as Christians, and more specifically as Orthodox Christians, don't speak out, if we don't speak out for our suffering brothers and sisters, who will? Shame on us if we don't speak out. Who will? And I know you have spoken out and continue to do so. We must speak out about the danger Christians in the Arab world face, because we know there are few, if any, protectors or allies to be found. Our brothers and sisters who are dying and being displaced don't have time for us to wait. Let's speak up now. Thank you so very much, and God bless you.